In the heart of Cleveland, Ohio, where the Cuyahoga River snakes through a city of rust and revival, Marcus Tate hauled garbage for a living. At 32, he was a wiry man with calloused hands and a quiet demeanor, his dark skin often dusted with the grime of his trade. His uniform, a faded green jumpsuit with city sanitation stitched across the chest, was a badge of survival, not pride. 6 days a week, he slung trash bags into the back of a rumbling truck, the stench of decay clinging to him like a second skin. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the rent on the small duplex he shared with his wife, Lena, and their newborn daughter, Amara. Lena was his anchor, a woman with warm brown eyes and a laugh that could light up the gloomiest Cleveland winter. They'd met 5 years ago at a community center barbecue, bonding over burnt hot dogs and a shared love of old Motown records. She was a nurse's aide at the Cleveland Clinic, working long shifts to help make ends meet. Their life was modest but full of love, the kind that didn't need a big house or fancy cars to thrive. But there was one shadow over their happiness: Lena's mother, Vivian Caldwell. Vivian lived in a tidy brick house in Shaker Heights, a suburb where the lawns were manicured and the driveways held gleaming SUVs. A retired high school principal, Vivian carried herself with the authority of someone who'd spent decades commanding respect. Her silver hair was always perfectly coiffed, and her sharp tongue could cut through any pretense. To Vivian, Marcus was a disappointment, a man who'd trapped her only daughter in a life of struggle. She never said it outright, at least not at first. But her disdain was clear in the way she pursed her lips when Marcus entered a room, or the way she'd asked Lena, "Are you sure you're okay with this?" while glancing at Marcus's stained work boots. It was a humid July evening when the tension boiled over. Marcus and Lena had driven to Vivian's house for dinner, a monthly ritual that Marcus dreaded. Amara, just 6 months old, was fussing in her car seat as they pulled into the driveway. Marcus carried the diaper bag, his jumpsuit swapped for a clean polo and jeans, though he still felt out of place among Vivian's polished furniture and framed family photos. Dinner was roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans, served on Vivian's good china. The conversation started innocently enough, Lena talking about Amara's new habit of grabbing spoons, Marcus sharing a funny story about a raccoon that had startled him on his route. But Vivian had a way of steering things toward judgment. "So Marcus," she said, slicing her chicken with precision, "how's the sanitation business treating you?" Marcus forced a smile. "It's steady. Keeps the bills paid." Vivian raised an eyebrow, her fork pausing midair. "Steady? Must be hard, though, doing that kind of work day in and day out. All that mess." Lena shot her mother a look. "Mama, it's honest work. Marcus is good at what he does." "I'm not saying it isn't honest," Vivian replied, her tone saccharine. "I'm just saying it's not exactly aspirational. Lena, you're working so hard at the hospital and now with Amara. Don't you think it'd be nice if Marcus could, aim a little higher? Maybe get a job with a future?" The room went quiet, the only sound Amara's soft cooing from her high chair. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice even. "I'm doing what I can for my family, Vivian. It's not like I'm sitting around." Vivian leaned back, folding her hands. "Oh, I know you're working, Marcus. But there's working, and then there's building something. Lena deserves a man who can provide more than just the basics. Don't you want that for your daughter?" Lena slammed her fork down. "Mama, that's enough. Marcus is a great husband and father. We're fine." "Are you?" Vivian pressed, her eyes narrowing. "Because I see you exhausted, Lena, scraping by in that tiny duplex. I raised you to want more than this." Marcus felt the words like a punch. He wanted to fire back, to tell Vivian she didn't know half of what he was capable of, but he swallowed his anger. Arguing wouldn't change her mind. Instead, he stood, kissing Lena's forehead. "I'm going to check on Amara," he said, excusing himself to the living room. As he rocked his daughter, her tiny fingers curling around his, Marcus made a silent vow. He'd prove Vivian wrong, not with words but with action. He wasn't just a garbage man. He was a man with dreams, and he'd show her what he could do. Marcus had always been a tinkerer. Growing up in Cleveland's Houff neighborhood, He'd spent hours in his uncle's garage, taking apart old radios and fixing broken appliances. He had a knack for seeing how things worked, for turning scraps into something useful. But life had a way of sidelining dreams. After high school, he'd taken the sanitation job to help his mom with bills, and one thing led to another. College wasn't an option. Too expensive, too far out of reach. So he'd settled into the grind, telling himself it was temporary. But Vivian's words lit a fire in him. He wasn't content to be the man she saw, a dead-end worker with no ambition. He wanted more for Lena, for Amara, for himself. The question was how. His job paid $18 an hour, enough to cover rent, groceries, and diapers. But not much else. Lena's salary helped, but with student loans and medical bills from Amara's birth, savings were a pipe dream. The idea came to him one morning on his route as he tossed a busted vacuum cleaner into the truck. His co-worker Jamal, a lanky guy with a quick laugh, noticed him staring at the pile of discarded appliances. "What's up, man? You look like you're plotting something." Marcus shrugged. "Just thinking. People throw out a lot of good stuff that could be fixed." Jamal snorted. "Yeah, and it's our job to chuck it. Why you care?" "I don't know," Marcus said, but the seed was planted. That night, after Lena and Amar were asleep, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a notebook. He started jotting down ideas. He'd always been good at fixing things. Microwaves, toasters, even the occasional lawnmower. What if he could turn that skill into something more? Not just a side hustle, but a real business. He could collect broken appliances, refurbish them, and sell them cheap to folks who couldn't afford new ones. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something he could build. The next day, he talked to his supervisor, who gave him permission to take certain items from the trash as long as he followed city regulations. Marcus rented a small storage unit for $50 a month and borrowed a friend's pickup truck on weekends. He started small, pulling out vacuums, blenders, and coffee makers from the heaps he collected. At night, in the cramped garage behind their duplex, he'd clean and repair them, his hands steady as he soldered wires and replaced parts. Lena was supportive but cautious. "You sure about this, babe?" she asked one evening, watching him tinker with a dismantled toaster oven. "You're already working so hard." "I know," Marcus said, wiping sweat from his brow, "but this could be something. I'm not going to let your mom be right about me." Lena's face softened. "She's wrong about you. She's always been wrong." Marcus smiled, but he didn't reply. He didn't need to. The work would speak for itself. The first few months were tough. Marcus sold a few items on Craigslist and at flea markets, but the profit was barely enough to cover the storage unit and parts. He was burning out, juggling his sanitation job with late nights in the garage. Lena helped when she could, listing items online or watching Amara while he worked. But the strain was real. There were nights when he doubted himself, when Vivian's voice echoed in his head, a man who can provide more than just the basics. Then came a break. At a flea market in Parma, a woman named Carla bought one of his refurbished vacuums. She was a single mom, thrilled to get a working appliance for $20. A week later, she called Marcus. "My neighbor saw my vacuum and wants one. You got more?" Marcus did. He sold 3 more vacuums to Carla's neighbors, then 5 to a church group she was part of. Word spread. Soon he was getting calls from community centers, shelters, and low-income housing complexes. People needed affordable appliances, and Marcus could provide them. He started a website, nothing fancy, just a free template with photos of his stock, and named his venture Tate's Fixes. Lena designed a simple logo, a wrench crossed with a plug, and Marcus felt a surge of pride every time he saw it. By the end of the first year, Marcus was making enough to quit his sanitation job. It was a risk, but Lena believed in him, and that was enough. He leased a small warehouse in an industrial part of town, using a small business loan to cover the cost. He hired Jamal part-time to help with deliveries and repairs, and the business grew. Marcus wasn't getting rich, but he was building something real. He kept prices low, often giving discounts to families in need, and his reputation as a fair, reliable guy spread through Cleveland's working-class neighborhoods. Meanwhile, Vivian remained unimpressed. At family dinners, she'd ask pointed questions. "How's that little project of yours going, Marcus?" Or, "Lena, "Are you sure this is stable?" Marcus never took the bait, just smiled and changed the subject. He didn't need her approval. Not yet. He was playing the long game. 2 years after that fateful dinner, Marcus was ready to show the world, in Vivian, what he'd built. Tate's Fixes had grown beyond his wildest dreams. He'd expanded the warehouse, hired 3 full-time employees, and partnered with local nonprofits to donate appliances to domestic violence shelters and transitional housing. His website now had thousands of hits a month, and he'd even gotten a write-up in the Cleveland Plain Dealer as a local hero for his work helping low-income families. But the real milestone was the launch of his new initiative, a training program for young people from underserved neighborhoods. Marcus had never forgotten how his own dreams were sidelined by circumstance. He wanted to give others a chance to learn a trade, to turn their hands and minds into something valuable. The program taught appliance repair, basic electronics, and business skills, with mentorship from Marcus and his team. The first cohort of 10 students was set to graduate at a community event in downtown Cleveland, and Marcus had invited Vivian to attend. The event was held at a recreation center in the Flats, a revitalized area along the river. The room was packed with families, local business owners, and a few reporters. Marcus wore a crisp button-down shirt, his logo embroidered on the pocket. Lena was by his side, radiant in a blue dress, with Amara, now 2.5, clinging to her hand. Vivian sat in the front row, her expression unreadable. Marcus took the stage, his heart pounding. He wasn't used to public speaking, but he'd practiced this speech 100 times. 2 years ago, he began, I was hauling trash for a living. It was honest work, but I knew I could do more. I started fixing things, vacuums, toasters, you name it, because I saw a need. People in our community deserve quality appliances, even if they can't pay top dollar. That's what Tate's Fixes is about, making life a little easier for folks who are trying to get by. He paused, glancing at Vivian. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, but she was listening. This program, he continued, is about giving back. These 10 young people have worked hard, learned a trade, and they're ready to build their own futures. I'm proud to be part of that. The crowd applauded as the graduates received their certificates. One of them, a shy 19-year-old named Deshaun, gave a short speech about how Marcus had changed his life. I was going nowhere, Deshaun said. Now I've got skills, a job, and a plan. Mr. Tate believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. As the event wound down, Vivian approached Marcus. Lena was nearby, chatting with a reporter, but Marcus could feel her watching. Vivian's eyes were softer than usual, but her posture was still rigid. Marcus, she said, her voice low, I owe you an apology. Marcus raised an eyebrow, waiting. I misjudged you, she went on. I thought you were less than what Lena deserved. But what you've done here, with this business, with these kids, it's more than I ever expected. I was wrong. For a moment, Marcus didn't know what to say. He'd spent 2 years imagining this moment, but now that it was here, the anger he'd carried was gone. I just wanted to take care of my family, he said, and maybe help a few others along the way. Vivian nodded, her eyes glistening. You've done that, and more. Lena joined them, slipping her arm through Marcus's. Everything okay? She asked, her tone light but her eyes sharp. Vivian smiled, a real smile, not the tight-lipped one she usually wore. Everything's fine, Lena. I'm proud of you both. That night, as Marcus and Lena drove home, Amara asleep in the back, Lena reached for his hand. You did it, she said softly. You showed her. Marcus squeezed her hand, the city lights blurring past. I didn't do it for her, he said. I did it for us. And in that moment, with his wife's hand in his and his daughter safe in her seat, Marcus Tate knew he'd built something that no one, not even Vivian, could ever take away.